Welcome back. The passing of President Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure bill indicates the green revolution and a green future is coming to the country. But what does this mean for the Bronx? While clean energy and green forward funding is a good thing, community activists and advocates say that planning must involve and hear the community. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Mychal Johnson, co-founder and longtime activist of South Bronx Unite. Welcome, Mychal. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sanjay.
Of course. So really important discussion on this green revolution that is emerging, the clean energy revolution we have, which is a great thing for our community. But as I mentioned, Mychal, this shift to clean green energy, we anticipate more proposals for alternative energy forward projects here in the Bronx. What are your thoughts and concerns with these proposals coming in?
You know, it's really good to have clean energy. I mean, we all know it's necessary. We know that it's important that we get off of fossil fuels. We know the impact it's had on our communities for decades, especially economically oppressed communities of color, especially in Mount Haven and Port Morris in the South Bronx. So we're welcome new technology that will lead us in the right direction. The only problem we see potentially is it going to be clean from the supply or from supply to service? Mm-hmm. That's a problem. I mean, we have to make sure that the transmission lines that this new power supply that will be traveling through will not impact our community adversely, will not cause any more health concerns or health problems that we've already been overburdened with.
Right. Thank you for that, Mychal. And let's talk about that transmission line just to inform our viewers who may not be familiar. So recently, Congressman Richie Torres joined the community and advocates in the South Bronx to share that a power converter station and transmission lines proposed to be built in the Bronx Terminal Market will be moved to a non-residential area. Is this still a win for the community? And what are your thoughts? Just give us a little bit of background on the HVDC converter station and transmission lines as well, if you can.
Yes, that is a win. It's always great when we have, our elected officials are really advocates for the concerns we have. I think the situation of having a converter station on the Bronx Terminal Mall, where people go shop, where they bring their children, their families, and across the street from what would be the Children's Museum. So relocating from there is a good thing, but where does it go from there? I think some of the comments from Plain Path was that, or their statement was, it was going to go to an industrial area away from residential. Unfortunately, all of our residential areas are close to industrial facilities. Mm-hmm. Only really one area we think is a siting location potentially for that, and it's still problematic because that area is the Harlem River Yards, and we have a waterfront plan that's been prioritized by the state since 2016 to create green space and waterfront access for residents who haven't had access to our peninsula for decades. Wow. So that's still support.
So that may set back those plans in order to bring these new plans in place. And something I want to note to the community is that there are 5 other proposals being submitted to NYSERDA. So there are things that we don't know. Are there any other plans being proposed in the Bronx? Where are these plans going to be? Where are these plots and energy stations and transfer stations going to be created in our community? We don't know. There are a lot of things that the community doesn't know, right, Mychal? And is that a big issue, communication and not being involved in that process?
Definitely. And we've already sent a letter to NYSERDA asking these kind of key questions about process. We should know the routes that are proposed by these 5 respondents to this RFP that NYSERDA released for this New York Renewable Tier 4 project that would bring clean energy into the New York City area, 15% of New York City's energy. Mm-hmm. But what's the route? And what's the impact on the electromagnetic field on human beings, and how close will that come in proximity to us? And where will they be located? And so it's a lot of the details of the plans have not been unveiled. And the information is something we've had to dig deep to get, even to find out the respondents. Chippy is one, which is a Champaign Hudson Power Energy Collaborative. They're bringing energy or hydroelectromagnetic energy down from Hydro-Quebec in Canada, which is itself is a really confrontation, really a project that's being fought by the indigenous people in Canada. What it mean for them? How can we support something that's going to harm someone else? Wow. But also, how can we support something that's going to hurt the already overburdened and disadvantaged communities like the South Bronx? We have the Fourth Clean Path, which was related, and New York Power Authority coming together to create their plan. We also have Rise Light, which is an entity that owns the Ravenswood station in Queens, and there's a couple oters. But we don't know their plans in totality. We know they've been looking forward to this for a while. I mean, we have we have the CLCPA, which is the Clean Climate Leadership Advancement Protection Act, and it's the CLCPA, and it's a law that they have to do this in a certain way. That NYSERDA has to look at disadvantaged communities and make sure we're not going to be overburdened again. So we just want to make sure the laws is held up. We don't make sure NYSERDA is really open and notorious about what the plan means to us.
Right. Thank you for that, Mychal. And going back to those plans that you mentioned, and the fact that the Bronx is ranked the unhealthiest county in New York State, as we know, with a place called Asthma Alley here in the South Bronx, where we're both from. What are some of the most impactful environmental infrastructures in the Bronx today contributing to environmental racism and these negative outcomes, as well as these high COVID-19 rates? Sorry about that.
Yes. No. Well, first, it started off with Robert Moses creating the Cross Bronx Expressway. And that created two more highway systems, connected those Cross Bronx and made an encirclement around the South Bronx with the Deegan and the Bruckner Expressway, actually choking our residents with diesel and carcinogens coming from exhaust. We also have the largest significant maritime industrial area in the city, the Mott Haven, Port Morris, and Hunts Point Peninsula, bringing more than 16,000 diesel trucks to our communities every day. So I think what made us more susceptible to coronavirus and COVID-19 was our pre-existing health conditions because of PM 2.5, like particulate matter coming from diesel exhaust, causing a lot of respiratory problems with high rates of asthma, diabetes, cancer, really affected our community and made us more susceptible. And even we lost a lot more people because of it. Because of our pre-existing health conditions, because of the built environment.
Right. And the big ticket item on a lot of these plans and proposals coming to the Bronx are jobs. Included in President Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure bill. He mentions jobs and the creation of jobs through energy sector and all of these things that are coming to the country. What do you think this bill will mean for environmental justice in the Bronx? Is it a good thing or bad thing, Mychal?
It should be a good thing. I think we need infrastructure that will hopefully reduce some of the burden we've had to carry and shoulder for decades. I mentioned the highway systems that traverse our neighborhoods, the industrial sightings of facilities on our peninsula, not using maritime industrial areas efficiently, where we're using more of the water for transporting rather than trucks, creating green jobs, creating solar panels that will help get us off of peaker plants and these peaker plants that are inundating our community. We have 4 in the South Bronx. When Pataki some 20 plus years ago put 11 around the state, he put 4 here. But the same thing is happening in Queens and in Brooklyn, where communities of color or EJ communities are the ones who suffer the burden. So infrastructure is important to increase, to decrease some of the negative impacts we've been faced with because of the lack of infrastructure.
Right. And the big question is why? Why do these things end up here in our community, Mychal? Why do you think that is?
Pataki's excuse was the land is cheap, right? It's also economically oppressed communities of color don't have the representation historically than more economically affluent communities that are white, just to be honest. The situation in South Bronx is different than the situation in Riverdale. The concentration of industrial facilities in our community is much higher than that in Riverdale, and so is our asthma hospitalization rates. So it happens to us not just in South Bronx, but in Detroit, Michigan, Flint, right, in the South, all over the country, in indigenous areas as well. We are the ones who shoulder the burden for these harmful environmental contaminants.
Right.
And that's the stop.
For sure. It's definitely a tale of two cities here in the Bronx. Within one borough, how many different changes, and the spectrum is just wide here when it comes to environmental justice. So as the South Bronx, of course, continues to grow in investment and gentrification, can you share how the EJ battle shifted from right to breathe to right to stay?
Yeah, I mean, when we looked at our EJ battles around public land and what's occurred on our peninsula with Mario Cuomo, then governor, giving away 106 acres of waterfront land a campaign contributor, Gillespie Group, for 99 years. We looked at land as being like the precursor, the nucleus of how all these environmental harms have taken place. We looked at how we now, not only do we have to stay, we have to be able, in staying, meaning that we have to be able to control our public land. We also have to make sure that real estate speculation does not push us out. We make sure that our folks can actually stay here. We've actually made this borough what it is and what it made our community what it is. And that should not be at the expense of market rate forces that increase rents, increase taxes, and displace folks who've been here for decades.
Thank you for that, Mychal. And I know SBU also advocates for civic engagement in the community. And this upcoming general election actually includes a ballot measure on the state constitutional right to clean air, clean water, and a healthful environment. What is the importance of voting on this measure this coming November? Please share.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, it should be a human right that we have clean air and clean water. It shouldn't have to be something that you have to do an amendment to our state constitution that would require it to be respected. It's a life or death issue. We don't have clean air in the South Bronx. Actually, clean air comes at a cost, meaning you have to be more economically fluent and maybe even a different race to receive clean air in New York City. So you're talking about the Tale of Two Cities in the Bronx. It's Tale of Two Cities also in New York City. Something that de Blasio spoke about ending, right? But that did not end. It just kept manifesting itself. And so the amendment is important. People should vote yes. It's a no-brainer. We need clean air. We need clean water. We need healthier lives, outcomes, and we need not to be forced to suffer the burden from all the cumulative impacts of these different entities playing off each other. The highway system, the significant maritime industrial area, the heavy diesel truck intensive businesses, all causing unhealthier outcomes, which we'll talk about, made us one of the most unhealthy county of all the 62 counties in the state of New York.
Thank you so much again, Mychal, for your time today. I wish we had more time, and we appreciate you joining us here on BronxNet. You're welcome back anytime. You can follow South Bronx Unite on social media. You can also visit southbronxunite.org to find out more information about this incredible movement that has been holding it down here in the South Bronx. Thank you, Mychal, again.
My pleasure, and thank you for doing the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Mychal. I walk in great shoes. So we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday.